Hello listeners, we've partnered with ClassicFootballShirts.com where you can get your classic, rare, retro, vintage football shirts for your football team of your choice. I recommend a Parma kit. You know, there's some lovely options on the website. There's a referral link on our Twitter or in the description of the YouTube video. Click there, follow it through and enjoy. I say Parma, get it on you, it looks lovely. Look from the 90s. Ooh. Listeners, do you remember us? It's For The Fans. Now, admittedly, we had a winter break. We had the longest winter break of any league.
We've done what the Premier League should have done.
It was a protest.
We're setting the standard. We think if we set the standard of how winter breaks should work, everyone will follow. So if there are winter breaks in the future, just know that we started the movement.
The almost award-winning podcast that started it.
Indeed. As ever, it's me, Ben. Good to see you again. I'm joined by Callum Keno. How you doing?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. And as ever, the game and battle operator himself, what the space, Jack, hi.
Hello, I'm just giving like a little wave, but no one can see me, so...
You did a little wave, lovely. I imagine it's a bit like Family Fortunes, the way you did it, but yeah, I'd appreciate that.
I've not got the name tag, I'm waiting on that.
So today's show is going to be more of an overview of everything that happened over Christmas and really the season so far. But of course, boys, we're going to kick things off as we're all together again with a feature. Ba-dum-ba-dum-bum-bum-bum.
Woo. Is this the Christmas feature?
It's a new year. It's a new jingle. No, it's not a Christmas feature because we didn't win the we didn't win the award, the FPA. Anyway, this week's feature. Now for Christmas, I got a trivia set. It's top of the league.
Oh yeah,
football
you were
trivia
telling us about
set.
this. You were very excited by it.
And I figured I would use it today because why not? Obviously. Now, what I've done is constructed two piles on my desk, and I'm ready and waiting to select cards from each. Each of you are going to get 10 questions, and some of them will be easy, some of them won't be. We're going to start off, though, with Jack. Which pile would you like, left or right, Jack? That's the real question, left or right?
Can I have the top 5 from left and the bottom from right, 5 from right?
Oh, okay, you can. We'll do that. It's like countdown.
Thank
1,
you.
2, 3, 4... 5, and then was it the bottom one from the pile on the right?
Yeah, it was, if that's okay.
So that's fine. 3,
I feel like we're wasting not having
5.
webcams on the podcast at times, so this is one of them.
Okay, Jack, your time starts. This isn't timed. Okay, Jack, question number 1. Which of these players has never scored a hat-trick for England? Bobby Charlton, Gary Lineker, Paul Scholes, Luther Blissett, Teddy Sheringham, or Alan Shearer?
Alan Shearer.
Incorrect. The correct answer was Teddy Sheringham. Who won the first FA Cup final held at Wembley Stadium? Oh, that's a tough one.
What, new Wembley or old
No,
Wembley?
no. Held at Wembley Stadium.
Preston.
Incorrect. The correct answer was Bolton Wanderers.
Oh, yes.
Who was England's football manager in the 1970 World Cup?
I mean, I was like not even a fetus at this point, so I don't have a clue.
Can I steal?
No, sorry, Callum. No steal.
I don't know.
The correct answer was Sir Alf Ramsey, still in charge. In which World Cup did England goals by Mariner, Robson and Francis feature in games against France, Czechoslovakia and Kuwait?
Right, let's just guess.
I'm enjoying this.
That's a World Cup, yeah. When was the last World Cup? That's a good place to start, isn't it? I'll go with 86.
Incorrect, it was 82.
That's heartbreaking, that.
Which is the largest city in the United Kingdom not to have a football team?
Wakefield.
Point! Ding!
I've heard that one.
Who's the only player to have scored in a Champions League final, UEFA Cup final, FA Cup final, and League Cup final?
Probably Steven Gerrard.
Great answer, Steven Gerrard. Ding! Which Scottish football team were named after an English rugby team?
Gretna.
Incorrect, it was Rangers. Which famous footballer left Tottenham in 1992 to join Japanese side Grampus 8?
That would be Gary Lineker.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh,
it is. Sorry,
that's awkward, isn't it?
Point away from Keenan.
You forgot, I'm the Japanese footballing master. Japanese football trivia is my specialist subject.
Should have introduced you as that. What do Chris Sutton, Les Ferdinand, Moritz Volz and Mark Albrighton have in common?
I think I know this.
They're not bald.
Incorrect. Keno, you don't get a point here, but...
Is it something to do with milestone goals?
It is. 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 and 20,000
Mark
goals
Albrighton
respectively.
scored the 20th.
So, Jack, you finished this feature on 3 correct answers.
I mean, I feel like I got some tough questions there, and I now regret mixing up the piles. So,
Kino, would you like pile number 1 or pile number 2, or of course a mix of each?
I mean,
I'll
just
take
to
pile
check,
number 1.
he's not going to get my questions again, is he?
No, I'm actually, Kino, I've changed the rules. I'm going to concertina them.
Okay.
So you get a selection of both. Both piles were just randomly selected. Right. Okay.
That's fine.
Final
I'm partial to both
pile,
piles.
1 or 2? Final card.
1.
1. There we are. That's the last question you get in, so bear that one in mind. Okay. Kino, your time starts on the klaxon. Jack? Thank you. Which British team's ground is in 2 countries? Great question.
Gretna?
Incorrect. Correct answer is Chester City, Diva Stadium. It's Wales and.
There's a stadium in Brazil that's like built on the equator.
We're trying to do a feature. We're trying to do a feature here.
Sorry.
Piggy, what can you do?
The plug hole's flushed the other way on the other side.
The 1982 Southampton team included Mike Cannon, Alan Ball, Peter Shilton, Kevin Keegan, Mark Wright, and Dave Watson. What do all of these players have in common?
What did you? What was the
Mike
beginning of
Shannon,
that?
Alan Paul,
No,
Alan Ball, Peter Shilton. I'll do it again. Peter Shilton, Kevin Keegan, Mark Wright, and Dave Watson all have something in common. They were in the 1982 Southampton team. But what else do they have included? What else do they have in common? Even
they've all Captain England.
correct. I mean, that's impeccable. Who in 1980 won the FA Cup from outside the top division?
1980. Wasn't Nottingham Forest, was it?
West Ham United, that'd be Arsenal. Which player scored the first ever Premier League goal to be screened on live television?
Ooh, I really have no clue. I'll say Teddy Sheringham.
Correct.
Really?
Unbelievable.
You're joking.
That's correct.
Can I walk out now?
Oh my god!
Name the 4 players to have scored hat-tricks for 3 different Premier League teams. Oh, my. Good luck with that.
All 3?
There's 4 players who have scored
And
hat-tricks
you want
for 3
3?
different Premier League teams. Well, it says name 4, so...
Oh, bloody hell. Okay, well, is Jermaine Defoe one?
Incorrect. We'll move on.
No.
It's Kevin Campbell, Les Ferdinand, Teddy Sheringham, and Andy Cole.
Tough.
Yeah, difficult.
Easy.
What year was the Premier League founded?
1992.
Correct. Who were the only 2 players to win full England caps with 5 different Premier League clubs?
James Milner?
Incorrect. Scott Parker and Emil Heskey.
Uh,
And 2 more questions to go. Who was the first professional soccer player to be knighted?
Sir Bobby Moore.
Incorrect. It was Sir Stanley Matthews. Oh dear. 2 to go. I lied before. What was the number on the back of the jersey that Maradona and Pele both said was lucky?
Number 10.
Correct. And there are 2 current England Football League teams with an X in their name. Who are they?
English Football League.
Yeah.
How old's this piece of trivia?
I got it for
Wrexham.
Christmas. Incorrect.
Oh,
Although,
Who
are
is
they
it?
in the league now?
No.
The correct answers are Exeter City and Crewe Alexandra. So incorrect.
yeah,
So, Jack, you finished on 3 correct questions answered. But Callum, this week's winner with 4.
Yes!
Oh, there
Yes!
we go.
But he said I was wrong about Gary Lineker's question, so you should lose one for that.
I am taking. It's a new year, and it's time to
It's a new
reverse
year.
this trend.
My word.
Can
So
we
there
just
are.
clarify, the feature score is continuing from the start of the season, rather than the start of the new year?
No, it's calendar year, Jack.
Yeah, but because we fell out, you actually lost 5 points. So I'm really
True.
sorry about
I'm
that.
probably still winning.
Fair.
Yes. also true.
So there we are. That is this week's feature complete. Let us know how you got on at home or on the
Can I
bus
just
or on the
say,
train.
I feel like those kind of trivia questions are the one you meant to sit down with like a pen and paper and for 5 minutes kind of plot
Yes,
out.
but
your
that would
answers.
not have been an entertaining radio feature,
No,
would it?
It's not an audio feature, is
I'm
it, Jack?
trying to basically make me and Kino seem like we didn't completely screw up.
My
we did
my
well to
Teddy
get onto
Sheringham.
the
Yeah,
line.
your
was
Keenan's Teddy Sheringham
masterful.
answer was one of the best answers we've ever had in any feature. It was plucked
Yeah.
from somewhere. Right,
I don't know where.
No, we still don't know where. Right, and what we're going to do now, chaps, is chat about the football. There were lots of Premier League games. Probably over, how many do you reckon there were? I mean, this should be
Six or 7 since we were last here.
6 or what?
6 or 7. What Premier League
sorry?
matches?
I think there's been 5 actually.
Yeah.
Sorry,
You doing
there's 5.
You're doing comedy here because I don't get it.
Well, there's 6. There's been 5 games since the last show.
You mean match days?
Match days.
I mean actual football matches.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's been a lot. But I was going match days.
You were saying 6 or 5. Fuck the kid. What does he mean? He's gone lower. No, probably quite a lot though. I would say, but nearly 50, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
We're a disgrace. So, what we'll do is we'll start. Should we start from the bottom up or the top down? What do you want to do?
Top down.
Top down.
Stick to the running order, Ben.
Sorry, yeah, it's been kicking off. Chelsea are to the top of the league as they seem to have been all season, it feels like. But they did have a defeat over Christmas. Spurs, they piped up, didn't they? Got revenge for last season. Probably didn't mean as much. But beat them. And it was one of the only times we've seen Chelsea this season, put under pressure by a team that quite literally just outworked them.
It's about this time of year again when I start waxing lyrical about how good Spurs are. Like we were here last year, we're here again, and I couldn't really start beating them up for most of the season because they were doing okay, but they weren't in amazing form. Since we last were on air, I think they've probably got the best form in the league. They've won the last 6 in a row, I think. And
Manchester United's same form in their last 5.
Yeah,
I think United might have won a few more.
Yeah, and in this particular game, I think it was probably the best performance of those 5 or 6, where they went toe-to-toe with Chelsea in a way that no team has done since they've been on this run. I thought what was most interesting was the way that they went with the 3 at the back, which teams have tried already this season. Everton springs to mind at Stamford Bridge, which backfired horrendously. Teams have tried that and failed since Chelsea made this switch and not been able to match them. And what was most impressive was the battle in the centre of the park for me, in the way that this sort of 2 systems unfolded, where Wanyama in particular, but also Dembele, sort of outperformed in almost every way 2 of the best centre midfielders in the league this year in Matic and Kante. And Pochettino went toe-to-toe with Conte. And I think that was what was most impressive, because you could have maybe imagined a scenario where a team maybe shut up shop against Chelsea and nicked one on the break, but Spurs didn't do that. They went straight up against Chelsea and were the better team.
Did it surprise you, Jack, that Chelsea haven't continued the run? I mean, the run itself is very impressive. You should take nothing away from the run. But did it surprise you they weren't able to beat Tottenham, or were you expecting Tottenham to be out for revenge?
I don't know. I mean, Tottenham and Chelsea actually only met a few months ago. I think it was 2-1 then, and Spurs actually took the lead, and it was one of the few times that Chelsea have been behind this year. And that was away from home. So I think going into this game, you were kind of sat there thinking, yes, Chelsea are favourites, but you couldn't really say they were clear-cut favourites. It's worth noting that kind of going into this game, Tottenham sat on, 39 points? They were 10 points behind Chelsea, had lost in this match.
Tottenham were also the bookies' favourites, actually, narrowly going into this game, which is interesting.
Were they?
Yeah, they were narrow.
I think because the thing is, for Spurs, they had so much to play for in this game, and being at home, the prospect of going 13 points behind Chelsea after 20 games, I imagine, is enough to, really get the players focused. And this is a Spurs team now where the players, they're used to performing under pressure. There was certainly some pressure, I think, going into this game. The fact that they had this chance to kind of leapfrog the likes of Arsenal and knock them out of the top 4. And as Keano said, they were favourites, albeit narrowly. And I don't want to say I wasn't surprised. I kind of had a feeling Spurs might win. But at the same time, the way Chelsea have been playing, it's hard to underestimate, I guess, just how good they are. I know that in the previous game, they kind of got somewhat fortunate, I guess, Stoke. They won 4-2, and they have got a great defensive record kind of prior to that game. So
they looked a bit shaky
were beginning to show in that Stoke game. I think
to be fair, go on.
I was going to say, I think in this game here, going away from home to Spurs, it's perhaps one of the toughest games they could have had, particularly given Spurs' form going into this game. And I think it was one of those games actually where I think it's easy to say this now, but Spurs last year might have bottled this, and because they had less to play for, in terms of there's a little bit less in the way of expectations, this time they meet Chelsea, they were able to just relax into it a little bit more. And I thought, actually, the likes of, you talked kind of about the 2 guys in the centre. I thought Dele Alli was superb. I also thought Christian Eriksen had one of the best games I've seen him have in a Tottenham shirt in quite some time.
Well, he's come back into form. I think his form has sort of mirrored just Spurs' general form, in the sense that from the start of the season, maybe for the first 3 or 4 months, he was not affecting games in the way that we'd seen him do in the past. And his sort of return to form, goal scoring, and sort of just general influence on the game, his return to form has coincided with the return of Harry Kane for starters, which I think is interesting, and also just Spurs' general form. To be fair to Chelsea in this particular game, just quickly, I thought that. I don't think it was a case of a team getting to like a record-breaking point and then bottling it. I think they actually played okay.
It's a very even game aside from the goals.
Yeah, I mean, you said about this game, Ben, it was almost quite dull for the first half now because both teams were so evenly matched that it was sort of just cancelled each other out. And I think it was just the case that Spurs were that 2 or 3% better on the day, which you have to applaud them for.
Yeah, well, I get that 2 or 3% felt like the goals. It didn't. To me, it arguably edged slightly in Chelsea's favour, but was very, very even. And the strange thing is about that, obviously, Spurs win the game. 2 lovely headers from Dele Alli, goal scoring form all of a sudden. Who knew?
6 in 3, 3 braces in a row.
It makes you wonder what Roy Hodgson was telling him to do, doesn't it? That's all I can think of. Every time I see any English player play well, thinking, I wonder what Roy told him to do. I wonder what Roy's instruction was. Never mind, We should touch on the Chelsea run, though. Obviously, we didn't really cover it too much. 13 games is pretty good going. Like, they've obviously lost to Spurs. You might expect them to sort of drop off at this point, but no, they're still a significant advantage. 5 points now ahead of Liverpool. And, Kino, they're still your favourites for the league, right?
Well, they were. I mean, we're going to do the little prediction check at the end.
All right, we'll see what then. They might be. Tune in later on to find out if Kino is confirming his prediction. And then on Spurs, Jack, what's a good season for Spurs? They're still in the Europa League. Obviously, they were knocked out of the Champions League because they performed pretty dreadfully. What's the expectation here now for Spurs? They're third in the league, same points as City, ahead of Arsenal, ahead of Manchester United. What are you thinking?
Well, at this point last year, after the Christmas show, I remember it distinctly because it's kind of become a tradition at this point that we kind of renew our predictions and change them.
I'll ask you, Jack, will Leicester win the league this year?
Well, no, I'm going to say no, although actually the odds on them winning are still twice as good as they were at the start of last season. So.
Wow, that's quite impressive.
But this time last year, I said Spurs were going to win the league, and they were in third, and I got laughed at. And they came third in the end, to be fair to them, but they did bottle it. But they actually gave it a good title challenge.
Quite nicely.
And I feel like, actually, given how Spurs have played as of late, when you look at it, after the start of the season, they went on this good little unbeaten run, but they weren't winning that many games. I think they drew as many as they won in kind of their first 10. And there was a few questions being asked, and they had a few defeats back-to-back following that, and suddenly you were sat there thinking, is this going to be a Spurs side who are really, struggling to even keep up with the top 4 at this point, especially with a few of the teams that are in form. I think the form that Spurs have had of late, albeit against what you'd have to say is weaker opposition with the exception of the Chelsea game, is the kind of form that they need to have what many would have predicted them to have at the start of this year, which is kind of a good crack at comfortably finishing top 4, perhaps an outside chance and a little bit of a title push. And I actually think, given how they're playing, given how good they've been defensively, a lot's been made of Chelsea's defence. Spurs' defence has been equally as good this year. And I think realistically, it's going to take, I think, Chelsea to slip up a few times, with that 5-point cushion they've got and 7 points to Spurs for them to have a chance. But I don't think there's any real reason why Spurs, can't push the likes of Liverpool, certainly for second at this point.
I think it's quite important that they've already played Chelsea twice now. They're not going to play Chelsea again this year, and that could be unfortunate for them because they know that they can take points off Chelsea, and if they maybe had a chance towards in the run-in where there was a big game like that, they probably will have some against Liverpool and United, but if there was that chance for them to really take points off Chelsea in the run-in, that could be crucial. I think it may actually suit Spurs this year as opposed to last year in the sense that they're sort of up against known qualities a little bit more. I think last year was such a funny year because obviously Leicester sort of took the whole league by surprise and no one worked them out really for the whole year. I think the top 6, we'll probably mention it later.
It's far more measured, isn't it, than previous year?
There's a bit of a gap as well opening up between the rest of the league, and there's going to be no surprises. It will be that top 6, I expect. Just in what order is the question.
Well, they get the gap from Everton to United is 9 points now.
Yes,
and you can't necessarily see Everton being the team to sort of
haul 9 points.
Yeah, you can't see that becoming smaller at this point.
Exactly. So Spurs are dealing with a bit more of a known sort of environment this year. They're a year older.
But it's worth saying that the teams are much stronger. So they may all know it, but Chelsea, Liverpool, City, it's hard to say, isn't it? But certainly Liverpool and Chelsea are much better than they were last year. Much, much better. And it's also I will say on this actually, it's interesting that the top two teams are the teams without Europe, and Spurs have been on this good run when they've not been in Europe, when they've been without European football in between. And you mentioned the draws they had pre-season. A lot of it came sort of after good performances in Europe, and then they would draw a game here and there. For example, they drew away at Bayer Leverkusen, and then they drew at Bournemouth. And it was that same sort of thing. They played Liverpool in the Cup midweek, and then they drew with Leicester. And that became a little theme. Again, they lost to Bayer Leverkusen, drew with Arsenal. And I don't know, it might be the case that without European football, Spurs are a much stronger team. They become a tighter unit. And obviously that comes up again soon, though. They've got Ghent in the Europa League. And a game like over 2 fixtures, you still expect Spurs to win. So again, there'll be another round. And I wonder if actually that's the kind of thing that'll do well Spurs this year, just being in Europe that little bit longer.
I think sort of if we kind of move this towards the more general, just sort of quick sort of top of the table thing, I think what will actually help Spurs, I think if I'm trying to assess who I think will challenge Chelsea, I do still think Chelsea will win the league, but in terms of who may finish second or third, I think the difference with Spurs and say a team like Liverpool, I don't know if you'd agree with this, is that to me Spurs are a much more known quantity, and I know I've just said sort of use that in a different context, but I think they're much more capable of grinding out results on a weekly basis in a way that I think maybe Liverpool, possibly United can do that, but certainly not City at the moment. Liverpool and City to me are slightly more erratic, and Arsenal in terms of their form and the ways that they will concede goals at certain times in the game. I think Spurs are less sort of fallible to that. Along with United, which is why I think they will probably, for me, be maybe second and third this year, or at least certains for the top four in some order.
So it's funny, I do really enjoy watching Tottenham play. I love watching, Jack mentioned Christian Eriksen before, love watching Christian Eriksen play, but I do think Europe will just mess up a little bit what Spurs are trying to do. And just drop off slightly, because the teams below them are much better this year. United, Arsenal, City, all much better than they were last year, arguably. Even though Arsenal are in fifth and obviously came second last year, I do think the Ozil Sanchez combination is performing a little bit better than it had in previous years. I don't know, maybe not. And I think Spurs have got to keep it going. If they continue to find the consistency, I think they'll be fine. I think that's probably the question with Liverpool as well. Chelsea, arguably, have already proven that they've got it. 13 games in the spin. I think Liverpool have lost 1 in 17 or something, so it's not too bad. Shall we move on to the sort of the teams below? Just ever so slightly below. Arsenal and Manchester United are interesting for quite a lot of reasons. Arsenal fans not particularly happy at the moment. Are they ever happy?
TV is delightful.
I mean, it's been quite good viewing over Christmas, I must say. They're not very happy.
We should first address you mentioned those two teams, the 2 scorpion kicks. We should talk about.
Jack, which did you prefer out of the scorpion kicks?
Giroud's.
Are we saying it's better?
Yeah, it's better. And I'll tell you why it's better. He's not offside. And for me, I don't know if this is just me, if a shot goes in off the crossbar, it hits the crossbar and pings down, that's like doubles the style points on the goal for me. Like that's the cherry on top of the cake. You know, like in Tony Hawk, if you did an extra trick, it gave you another multiplier. That's what hitting the crossbar and it going in does when you score. It
bumps up your multiplier.
See, I think visually Giroud's is better. I think technically Mkhitaryan's is better, because I think Mkhitaryan's is almost planned, whereas Giroud's is a bit more instinct. And I don't know, I think because he's planned it and pulled it off, that's slightly more impressive than the instinct of just sort of flicking leg. But mainly because Giroud said afterwards, "Oh, it's a little bit lucky, wasn't it?" I'm thinking, oh, okay. So
it reminded me actually of when Drogba did a cross that went in, and Andy Gray was saying it was like the greatest chip shot ever, and he definitely meant it. And
was it a Rabona?
Yeah, it's an accident.
Was it a Rabona?
It was like, I can't remember who it was against. It was a little dink that went in. And I feel like if I scored that kind of goal, I go, yeah, that was intentional. Do it on the training ground all the time. Like, you just roll with it. Don't be modest. You've scored one of the best goals of the season.
You must be a bit mad if you're Mkhitaryan. You're probably not mad. You're probably earning 150 grand a week. But to score a goal like that and then to sort of tune into the football a few days later, oh, bloody hell, what's happened there? I've been completely outdone. But you just know, in every end-of-season montage, those 2 goals be shown at the same time now. So just look out for the Scorpion tick section.
I'm going to sit there pausing it going, Mkhitaryan was offside though.
It was the fact that they came within a few days of each other as well, which I think was funny.
Yeah, that is funny. I've not seen the Scorpion kick for ages.
No, well, I don't think I can't remember ever seeing one, and in the flesh, sort of in. Obviously, everyone's seen like Rene Higuita and people like that, but I don't think I'd seen one that had led to a goal.
That was 25 years ago, so that's
exactly.
it's fair enough. Should we talk about the big Swede at Manchester United? Who, I mean, I said before he joined, he's probably the signing of the season. I think I went as far as to say, it'll be, if not the signing of the season, a signing of the season.
Player of the month for December.
Player of the month for December. And his goal record this year, I haven't got it in front of me, but it is ridiculously impressive.
13 goals in 19 games for United.
But I meant the calendar year. I think he's only behind Messi in terms of goals in domestic, in sort of all divisions. Last year, he got
2016, just to be.
He got 50 and 51 for PSG last season. He's got 18 in 28 in all comps this season for Manchester United. I'd say 13 in the league in 19 games. He's 35. It's not bad, is it? Like he's pretty bloody good. He's one of these players that doesn't rely on pace, and it's paying off for him.
I feel annoyed here because I said he'd only get 6 goals this season. I wanted to say it more as like a slightly bitter Liverpool fan who didn't really want to say United player would do well, and I was kind of hoping he'd bottle it a little bit because I may or may not be one of those people who's doubted to that and a little bit when it comes to could he actually do it in the Premier League.
He's got an amazing record, though. He's an amazing player that people just did not care about.
Of course, but I did think going into this, like 35 now, is he past it?
Yeah, but at 34, Jack, he'd scored 38 in 31.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a point where players hit a cliff. There's plenty of examples of players who go and have great goal-scoring seasons, then a year later, like they just don't score ever again.
The thing about Ibrahimovic is that, as you say, Ben, firstly, he doesn't rely on pace, but there are many players that don't rely on pace that still go shit by the time they're 35. But the difference with Ibrahimovic is that he is an incredible athlete and he is so fit that you combine those two things together and they still make him just as good a player as he was when he was 30.
He broke the strength records at Manchester United, whatever that means. I'd like to think it's that thing you get at the fair where it comes down, the punch bag.
He's benching more than anyone.
Yeah, but I've no doubt. But he's won leagues at Paris Saint-Germain, AC Milan, Barcelona, Inter Milan, Juventus. Obviously, they were sort of taken away because of the Calciopoli scandal.
Yeah.
And Ajax. He's won things wherever he's been. He's already won the Community Shield. I mean, I think Manchester United are a very strong contender for the Europa League this year. I know that sounds like I'm being a little bit disrespectful, but I do think they'll win a trophy. They're still in the League Cup as well. I think the Europa League could be their thing this year. But obviously, they want to get into the top 4. But I wouldn't be surprised if they get Champions League football.
And Sevilla aren't in the Europa League this year, so,
that would be quite good, actually. If Manchester United win the Europa League and it gives Arsenal in 5th the Champions League place, they would love that. That would be the ideal Wenger season in many ways.
He'd keep his record going.
That would be a season to go out on, wouldn't it? Get your Champions League football, get out. Do we think, this is a big question, I want answers from both of you, really. Who do we think, actually, rather than, we'll do a little prediction now, because this is not necessarily too specific. Who do you think will finish higher out of Arsenal and Manchester United? Very close currently. 41 for Arsenal, 39 for Manchester United, so a 2-point gap.
United
are coming into form. Arsenal are having their Arsenal moment.
They're going the different ways.
I'm going to say Arsenal.
Oh, you're just to be different.
No, I'm not. I'm going to say Arsenal, but not because I want to be different. I'm going to say it on the basis that actually Arsenal have scored almost 50% more goals, and Arsenal are known for having these little blips. But generally speaking, Wenger is pretty good at getting Arsenal on the straight and narrow. You think back to last year where they didn't have a lot to play for going towards the end of the season, but they stuck at it. And for example, Spurs slipped up against them, and obviously they ended up getting second last year. And actually, I think Arsenal are a team where it's almost characterised that every season they do have one of these little slip-ups that usually puts them outside of the title race, and yet they are able to kind of steady the ship and kind of push on for a kind of a top 4 finish. And I think as much as they are struggling this year, you compare kind of their stats with United, particularly when it comes to their goal-scoring capabilities. Yes, United are getting a lot, but they are relying on Zlatan a hell of a lot. And whilst they are going in 2 separate directions, I kind of look at Arsenal, look at some of the games they've had of late. They've not been great. But at the same time, I feel like you look at their squad as a whole, they've got some very good players. They've got players coming back into full fitness. And particularly their next run of games, actually, up until kind of March, the only big game they've really got is against Chelsea. And, wins against the likes of Swansea, Burnley, Watford, Hull and Southampton, all teams who you'd have to say haven't really impressed this year. Suddenly, it's a very, very different Arsenal situation, and they may well be
They've got tricky games in that, though. They've got Chelsea and Bayern in the middle of that, and Liverpool just after it, and then Bayern again after it.
Oh, of course.
It's a very difficult run.
I feel like if you can get 5 wins in those 6 games, you're stamping your authority as being a very good side. Arsenal's problem doesn't come against the smaller teams, generally speaking, although I guess you could say of late it has. The results that they've got, the bad results, generally speaking, just throughout Wenger's kind of time at the club, has been losing to the big teams. You know, they've obviously lost to the likes of City this year. They drew against United. They drew against Spurs. They actually beat Chelsea, of course, 3-0. So that they, on their day, they can take down a lot of different teams. And I feel like it's very reactionary just to suddenly say Arsenal will not be in the top 4 this year based off their recent form.
Let me change the question a little bit. This is kind of hypothetical in a way because we're in January and we've already had half a season. But who's got a better squad out of the 2 teams? You've both picked different sides. Like, I think United will finish above them. Arsenal, you think Jack. But who's got the better squad? I think United have got a slightly better squad than Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, you're not wrong, but then I don't see what...
So that's interesting. Like... So you think despite Man United having a better team, obviously both still in Europe, that Arsenal will finish above them? That 2-point difference that they currently have might be quite literally might be the difference come the end of the season. I
just think Arsenal as a whole, I think I prefer their squad personally. I think they've got a little bit more balance there.
Do you think it's better though? That was my question.
I don't think it's better, but I think that I think United have got better talent, but can that talent play better together? That'd be my question. Really.
I think. I guess the sort of I'm sort of playing devil's advocate, but the argument against that would be they've won 6 in a row, and they're certainly a side now that are starting to click. And I think the whole Premier League need to sort of sit up and take notice. Obviously, they're a long way. It still feels like quite a long way off Chelsea, but I don't know. I think United might be on for a Chelsea-esque run if it carries on.
United have won their last 10 games, but if you actually look at I think they've won their last 10 competitive games in a row. If you actually look at their games...
Well, they haven't lost, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, you look at their kind of games, they've played against Spurs and Arsenal, but they've been the only 2 kind of quote-unquote tricky teams they've really played since kind of November time. You actually look at the teams that they've gone on the good run against, there's only 2 of the current top 6 actually there that they've played. So, I mean, I'd like to see them take on a few of the bigger teams and kind of prove themselves in those ones. I think the fact that Arsenal managed to draw against United away from home is a good indicator of the fact the 2 teams are going to very much be alongside each other this year. I just think for me personally, I kind of look at Arsenal as a whole. I prefer the balance of their squad. They're scoring a lot more goals. And I feel like the defensive woes that Arsenal have got can be addressed. And I think they probably will be addressed actually this January. And I could see them dipping in for a player or 2 to kind of try and really push for the top 4. Because if they don't get it, it would be a shambolic season in some ways as far as Arsenal fans are concerned. And, well, part of me doesn't want to see that because I've now stuck out my neck on the line. I kind of do want to see it just to kind of see Arsenal fan TV.
It'll probably come down. They play, Arsenal United, interestingly, play on the 6th of May, 3rd game from the end of the season. It might come down to that kind of game. And then United play Spurs straight after that as well. It's going to be an interesting battle between those 2. I'm excited to see the rest of it. We've not even talked about City and Liverpool, but they are kind of the unknown quantities of the top 6 this season, I feel like, with the way they're playing. Right, shall we move on to someone different or some teams different? The middle of the table is a bit of a bloody mess, I dare say, at the moment. There's almost like a bottom 11 developing.
It's very odd. Very odd.
I've got a great stat for you.
Oh, good.
There's a slightly... I needed to get this down. It might not quite fit in the mid-table chat. But you kind of mentioned the fact there's like a bottom 11. Of the 7 teams in the bottom 7, so from 14th to 20th, in their last 5 games, all of those teams, they've won 4 games between them.
Wow, that is not... I mean, and that obviously includes games they've played each other.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just a bit of a mess when it comes to who's beating who.
It's not a lot.
There's a big gap opening, as you say, between the top and the bottom half.
Well, Everton are curious. Everton have put in bids for all sorts of players as well. Everton apparently bringing in Schneidlin. Balatti's now out for the season, so he's gone. They've brought in... Who have they brought in? They've brought somebody in.
Lookman, Charlton legend.
From Charlton, you're right.
Very good player in Football Manager.
Are we backing him to do it in the Premier League? I mean, Koeman said he wants him straight away.
All I'm saying is, on my FM save at the start of the year, Everton did actually sign him for $6 million. So
did they?
The game's
That's quite
got
good.
It right. I could load up the save and tell you how he gets on, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone, so I won't.
Yeah. We'll run through a few others. West Brom, I mean, just surprised me. I don't know how they're 8th. I don't know what Pulis does.
Honestly, the fact that West Brom are 8th is one of the most surprising things of the season so far to me. The only reason I say that is because for the first the first few games of August and then into September after the transfer window closed, you couldn't turn on any sort of, like football media involving West Brom without Tony Pulis complaining about the ownership and how he'd not been given enough money and how the squad was threadbare. And he was really, really, it seemed like, at that point, he was ready to walk away.
But it feels to me like he's making excuses before the season started.
Well, yeah, maybe that.
Which is strange considering they're now 8th.
Yeah, but and that's the thing, they didn't start the year that well. And I, living where I do, I know quite a few West Brom fans, and they were, for the last year probably, they'd been really not enjoying Tony Pulis and his football in particular at all. And they've gone strangely quiet.
8 wins. Same amount of wins as Everton, interestingly. Bournemouth have had a bit of an up and down Christmas, I would say. A few wins in there, a few defeats. And then, of course, they had the recent draw against Arsenal where they've kind of sort of collapsed, which is a bit sad.
Yeah, teams like Bournemouth, I think the way that West Brom play sort of prevented this a little bit. I think teams like Bournemouth, Southampton in particular, whose form has not been good for the last 3 games.
No, lost 3.
I think they have been the kinds of teams that have really been affected by just the sheer volume of games, in the sense that they both play quite expansive attacking football, high energy football, but don't have the squads as deep as your Spurs or your Arsenal or your Liverpool, and they have been the teams that have been affected by this volume of games, I think, the most. Southampton, probably the best example of that. They've looked really, really leggy for the last 3 games.
Yeah, it's no coincidence, is it, that the top 6 in the last sort of 5 or so games have all had relatively good form, and then the bottom 10 have just been struggling. Jack, you had the stat before. It is no coincidence that squad depth, especially this kind of period, like we talk about the winter break affecting like the top players at international level. Well, it would arguably, of course these games should have to be played in different places, but in terms of having a squad that's fit and capable of playing throughout a season, having a 2-week break, a 10-day break over Christmas would undoubtedly help these lesser teams.
This is the exact argument that Ronald Koeman made in a press conference. It was probably before the New Year's game, so it was a week or 2 ago now, where he said that you wouldn't have to cut out, say, Boxing Day games or anything like that. You wouldn't sort of miss the real kind of festive football. But the way that the system is at the moment favours actually the biggest squads, because they are able to absorb these sheer volume of games and open up that gap. Whereas the teams with smaller squads, and particularly those who try, as we just said, to play expansive football, are really the ones who feel the amount of games that we play over winter so much. And as you say, it would only have to be a couple of weeks off, maybe at about this point, prior to the FA Cup 3rd round, and you maybe cut out 3 or 4 games and move them towards the end or even pre-Christmas, and you avoid this problem, and as you say, potentially even out the Premier League.
I feel really bad for Southampton in all of this. They've lost 3 of their last 3 games, and I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that actually, if you look at their games, they had a game on the 28th of December, a game on the 31st, and a game on the 2nd of January. They had 3 games in 5 days, whereas Chelsea had 3 games in 8 days. Chelsea aren't in Europe this year and are top of the league, and yet Southampton, a team who have had a few injuries this year, are on the road a fair bit in terms of they were going to Everton and they've been obviously in Europe, are expected to play those kind of 3 games within the space of, 5 days of each of it. It's just absolutely absurd, and I feel like there's an argument, if you're going to have like a stage, where a team plays kind of 3 games in 5 days or whatever, like crazy fixture you have to have, make it a team who aren't in Europe.
Yeah. My theory, just quickly on this, my theory on the winter break is this. I think it's inevitable that eventually it will happen. And when exactly that is unclear. I think obviously we've got, at some point if the World Cup is going ahead in Qatar, there will be a forced winter break, and that may inspire a bit of change. I think the reason that the Premier League haven't considered this before is that we talk about the products of the Premier League and the TV. There are no other European leagues on for about 2 or 3 weeks. So the Premier League is the only league going out around the world, which means that it is a unique product in the world for 3 weeks.
But push FIFA Ultimate Team, all the Team of the Week with English players this week, so it's great.
Yeah,
it's funny,
you make the,
just on that,
you
though,
make
that's
the
really
joke about
that is really funny because just quickly on Team. So Team of the Year came out. They were recording. The amount of people that so for those that don't know, in FIFA, Tony Kroos isn't very fast, but he's in Team of the Year. People going, I can't believe FIFA have put Tony Kroos. Like they're thinking, well, his pace is going to be very slow on FIFA. People are genuinely annoyed at FIFA. I can't believe they've done this. I mean, we always get these players. It's like that's because they're the best in it. That can't believe this. They're the best in the world. But people are furious that Tony Kroos is in there. It's like he cannot be a little bit slower. My word.
Just speaking of the Team of the Year thing, did you see Luis Suarez's photo that they used? They've got all the players, quite poignant photos, the type you pull when the national anthem's going on. And they've got Luis Suarez square on with his mouth wide open, looking like he wants to bite someone.
Well, I mean, you've read into that.
You joke about the Team of the Year and the Ultimate Team, but the point that I just made about the Premier League going around, it's kind of true that you the informed players and stuff. The Premier League is alone right now until I mean, La Liga have just come back in the last couple of days. The Bundesliga takes a massive break; they're off for 4.5 weeks, and it's a great opportunity for money, and that is. I think one of the main reasons
the Premier League loves the money.
They do. I think that's one of the reasons why we've not seen it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. We'll see if we get one. If we do get one, everyone will moan about it when it's here. So looking forward to that.
The thing is, I think it's the kind of thing where we'll have the Qatar World Cup if it happens. I still hope it doesn't. Sorry to any Qatarian viewers watching.
I think it may be
just sorry in general, not even because you World Cup.
I feel like that World Cup might happen, and everyone goes, actually, maybe we should do this more often, and that kind of just sets a precedent for the fact
that's my
that
point.
it happens.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, we've kind of talked about Southampton, Bournemouth, a few other teams in there. Stoke, Burnley, you're in that as well, as are West Ham.
Stoke is struggling. Stoke are struggling. They've had some tough games. And
considering where Stoke were at the start of the season, though, Stoke will be pretty happy, I think, to be 11th. Because they had a really, really poor start to the season, you might remember. And they've kind of come out of that. In the last, what would it be, sort of 8 games, they've won 3, lost 3, drawn 2. I mean, they'll probably take that, especially over the Christmas period. West Ham are just the most confusing team in the Premier League.
They've gone back to being that. They were quite good last year, and now they've just gone back to being really confusing.
They won 3 in a row, and you're thinking, they've sorted it. They've got tricky games against Leicester and United, but 3 wins in a row. The old West Ham back, they're going to make the Europa League push. No.
To be fair, Leicester. Sorry, not Leicester. West Ham did have Burnley, Holland, Swansea back to back. I mean,
sometimes
you hope you probably would win those.
Confidence builders, though, aren't they? Those kind of games. If you're West Ham, you feel like they should be at least.
Yeah, but I think not only have those 2 defeats to Leicester and Manchester United, they were also battered by City in the FA Cup, and that's kind of confusing.
That
as a
was
West
not
Ham
one
fan.
for the confidence.
That was one of the worst performances I've seen by a side. First sort of 20 minutes, they were all right. And then it just fell apart. And I mean, West Ham fans were gone by the 60th minute. I think they'd all left.
Well, the sign of a team that has rocky confidence is that as soon as that first goal goes in, how do they react? And West Ham went the opposite way that you'd expect.
I don't know if is the West Ham move. Did West Ham have to move? Was that ever touted? Or was this a move to make West Ham a bigger club? They didn't have to. It wasn't as if the Premier League was saying you got to move.
No,
because Karen Brady made a point this week about the pitch size, and someone, I think a West Ham fan tweeted Karen Brady and said, "Can you not make the pitch smaller?" Because at Upton Park, it was notorious that West Ham's ground was that a bit smaller than every other Premier League ground. That's just because of structurally that's how the Upton Park was built. Now, of course, they've moved to the Olympic Stadium. They've got a massive pitch comparatively to what they've been playing on last season. There's obviously a big culture shock for the players in that respect. All of a sudden, then, they haven't got this sort of tight-knit ground. The fans seem furious about the fact they're 1,000 metres away from the pitch. No one seems very happy at West Ham. And I tweeted out, actually, that if West Ham hadn't sacked Sam Allardyce to get Slavan Bilic, I do wonder if West Ham would have gone for Sam Allardyce and sacked Slavan Bilic. But... yeah, I'm still surprised Bilic is in the job.
Speaking of stadiums, something I do want to mention in this podcast because I think it's something that should be noted.
For the fans are getting a stadium, everyone. Oh, it's a big
I don't know if you guys have followed what's been happening with Millwall this week with their stadium, where they rent their stadium off Lewisham Council, and basically Lewisham Council have said basically they're selling the stadium for a compulsory purchase order.
My friend lives about 10 minutes away from the new den.
So basically the issue is that we'll have a lease on the stadium. Yeah. Lewisham Council are now selling the area. Millwall actually put in a bid of more than the house, like the company that wants to develop the land for the area. Lewisham Council denied it and have sold it to the housing company.
There's talk
could lose their stadium and could end up in Kent if like
Well, I
worse
was about to
comes
say
to worse.
that's the option. They're going to be like miles outside of the capital, which is not good.
Just get a pitch. Just get a regular Sunday League pitch.
Yeah,
just rent one. They're pretty you can get it for like 20 quid. Just rent a pitch.
All I'm saying is that Millwall Stadium should not be ripped down for housing. It is a piece of quality, and it's also the home of Harchester United. That is where Dream Team was filmed at the Den.
A piece of
I'm not sure.
history.
I'm not trying to entice Millwall fans. You're the last set of fans I want to entice. But
I was about to say that. That's part of the history.
But I wouldn't necessarily... What did you just describe the Den as, Jack?
What is it? A piece of history. There's a Dream Team was filmed there.
Yeah, I'm totally sure
classic.
I'd describe it as that. But it does seem a little bit disgraceful from the council. They're obviously trying to make money.
Anyway, I do want to mention it because it is like related to football, and also there are a lot of other football clubs in the UK that have a similar lease policy with the council, whereby they lease the ground.
This could set an ugly precedent.
Well, no, that is actually the real problem here. And also the fact that it's actually been approved. This initially, I think there's going to be an appeal, or it's set to be approved this week. There would be an appeal which would go to a public inquiry, but there are so many different football clubs, especially in the UK. Obviously, lots of small teams. It's and they all.
No, I've got it. Just ground share with London Stadium. Just ground share West Ham.
What could go wrong?
That's it.
That is the solution. No one could possibly be outraged by that. Someone get that emotion.
To be fair, I just repurpose the velodrome. On the Olympic Park.
Could do that as well. Yeah.
Get them playing in the handball arena. Wherever that is. Go in there. That'd be great. Anyway, let's talk about the bottom six, shall we? Who are
lots have gone on.
Yeah, let's complete the bottom six, which is just again that's strange as well, isn't it? The bottom six.
Say, we've skipped over Burnley, and Burnley deserves some credit.
There you are. Burnley.
Well, the thing is, they're in 12th, and if you looked at their score at the start of the year, you would have said relegation fodder. You would have probably put them in the same pigeonhole as Hull.
We said a couple of weeks ago, though, about Sean Dyche that... Sorry, Kid, I'll let you go and say what...
They're managed by Sean Dyche, though, isn't very likeable at the best of times.
Well, no, I don't feel like that should matter, because we talk about Everton, and we know how I feel about Everton as well. I'm not even utter his name.
True, you've got me.
I do want to just, Burnley, fair play to them. They're doing well.
We said a few weeks ago that we thought they'd learnt from their... I wouldn't say mistakes, but their time in the Premier League a couple of years ago.
Can I say, I applaud how well Burnley are playing, and I applaud the actual job that Sean Dyche has done. However, he comes across like Sam Allardyce from about 2010. If I was a foreign manager doing all these tactics and things, I'd be a manager.
We'll talk about foreign managers in a minute, Callum. I've got some things I'd like to say.
So do I.
So yeah, Leicester in 15th, Middlesbrough in 16th, and then we come on to Crystal Palace, who finally sacked Alan Pardew. And they've brought in Allardyce, a draw and 2 defeats. It's going well down at Crystal Palace. It's not going well at all, boys. It's going pretty horrifically, even with Allardyce in charge. He's not been there long, but you'd probably hope for a bit
grip on this team. They're
I'm looking
household names.
What is Kevin Nolan doing currently? That's the real question.
I've seen them get Alan Smith. He's become a manager now at Notts County. Bring him in.
Caretaker. Where is Kevin Nolan currently? Did we come out? He was a player manager for a bit at Leyton Orient. Do you know what? I think he's without club. Oh, he did.
I'm now Googling, but
I know he was playing in the non-league at some point.
I don't think it doesn't say he's retired. Oh, right. How interesting!
I could see it happening now.
I mean, he was player manager at Leyton Orient after West Ham, and he was released from Leyton Orient on July the 6th, and has not had a club for the first part of the season. I think that's my January shout. I think Kevin Nolan to Crystal Palace is all but done. I should say he was in league. That was League 2, and he was released.
Get him on the podcast.
I mean, we're looking for a fourth member. So yeah, Pardew's got an Allardyce in. Good appointment, bad appointment, indifferent appointment. Surprising that he's got a job after what he did.
Well, that aside, we've spoken about at length. They'll stay in the Premier League, won't they? With Allardyce in charge.
Yeah, probably you'd expect it.
To those ends, in the sense that you just want to get the money and survive, then yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah. The Premier League is a darker place now, isn't it? Bob Bradley's been sacked by Swansea. The Premier League will never be the same again.
I lit a candle when he left.
Did you? I love him, frankly. I thought he was great.
Hasn't he been offered the Danish national job or a Scandinavian national job?
I
think he has been. I think it's Denmark have gone straight in and been like, Bob.
He's the American Sven. He really is.
The issue for Bob Bradley is the fact that if you actually looked at how they played, it was just puzzling. It wasn't so much the results, because the results weren't actually that much worse than what they've done before.
What I realise, there's quite a lot of question marks over the Premier League generally, aren't there, this season? I don't know what's really going on.
It was when you were watching Swansea and you start thinking, why is Sigurdsson not playing behind the front man? Why have they got centre mids out on the wing? Does Bob Bradley know what he's doing?
What's Gylfi Sigurdsson doing at left back? This is odd. No, yeah, you're right though. It's not gone well.
Yeah, there was in those. How long was it? 10 games? Did he have?
In those, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, in those 10 games, they didn't show any sign at all of even remotely turning the ship around.
The thing that annoys me about this is the fact that about a year and a half ago, perhaps prior to... Who was the manager who managed Swansea at the end of last season after Monk? I can't remember his name now, the Spanish guy.
Guidolin.
When he came in, it was a little bit questionable because it was a bit un-Swansea. Swansea, for a long time, have been obviously praised by us, I think, on the podcast, and going back a year or so now, has been one of the better-run Premier League teams, a team who you can look at...
They have been since they came up.
Well, yeah, this was a good example of a team who...
I think you described them like a scarily run, I think you said at the time.
I think that was Palace, but... no,
I'm joking.
The issue for Swansea is they've kind of shown signs that perhaps the club's changing a little bit in that regard. Obviously, the Guidolin change was an example of that. Obviously, the new ownership came in the summer. They've now had 2 manager changes this year, kind of at the end of the year, this calendar year. They were looking for their 4th manager in 12 months.
Yeah, it's clear that, I mean, the history, as you say, they'd been ever since they came up, really, and before that with Martinez and Pablo Sousa and teams like that. Under Hugh Jenkins, they had a really recognisable philosophy. They were making long-term appointments, not being hasty, and everything looked stable. I think, although Jenkins is still nominally in power in terms of in his same position at the club, it's clear that he's not running it in the same way. The only thing that's changed in that regard is the owners, as you say, and I think
my worry is I think they've got a bit greedy. Like the sale of Ashley Williams, I think, was almost an example of that. A player who I think, if you were to ask many Swansea fans, they describe as kind of just irreplaceable.
Probably their player of the decade.
To the point where you would say, if he was still there, they probably wouldn't be in this position. It's that big a leap.
Well, the thing is,
him.
he's 32 years old, and they got good money for him. And actually, I was someone who thought, actually, that's not the worst bit of business. But at the same time, you expect them to reinvest that big and bring in a few players and bring in a direct replacement.
But in the Premier League, you couldn't get another Ashley Williams for that amount of money.
Of course not. But I feel like you could be getting a comparable player, or at least someone who really shines. You kind of look at Swansea's squad. Who of the players they have signed? I don't know. Since
Borja Baston was 15.
Like, how many of those players have really shone? Like, obviously, they brought in Llorente. Yeah. He's got a few goals to his name.
Well, none of them really. That's the problem, isn't it? No Swansea players have shown.
Swansea, one thing that Swansea have really benefited from is that they've brought in players who perform relatively well. And this goes back to when they first really joined the Premier League. You've got players like Michi, who came in and had one of the best seasons ever. They then brought in Boney, who played really well. And really, that recruitment just isn't sustainable, I think, by bringing in players, then moving them on.
I'm enjoying trying to get in there.
I'm trying to get in, but
that's amazing.
I think alongside that though, you mentioned Williams at the beginning of that little period, Jack.
Listeners, go back and listen to that minute of Kino going.
I'm editing it out.
That's a shame.
They just want to finish their point instead of butting in.
It's a new year. It's a new confrontation.
At the beginning, it was you and Jack last week. No,
don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. He still sickens me.
I think that you mentioned Williams at the beginning of that. Like, alongside those players that they did bring in, they still had the core sort of identity of the team that originally came up under Brendan Rodgers.
Liam Britton's still there.
Well, yeah, you say that, but like for the first few seasons of them being in the Premier League, there was like a core of Britton. There was Joe Allen for a little bit before he went to you. There was obviously Williams and players like that had Angel Rangel who had been there for a long time, knew the club. It sort of meant a little bit more to them. I think in the last sort of 18 months has seen even Gary Monk, because he was a player there.
Yeah.
And in the last 18 months, we've seen all of those players pretty much move on now. I think Williams is the last one, really, that was a key player, has now gone. And they've lost a little bit of that identity. The new ownership has confounded that even more. And their situation right now reminds me exactly of the Villa 12 years ago. It seems
12
like
years ago. It's been a long time, isn't it?
12 months ago, where they are almost rudderless, and I think relegation is nailed on.
What's interesting is they let a player like Gamis leave as well. He's the kind of player that you just think might be making an impact in this sort of side. He might just be I don't know. He was okay last year, wasn't he, for them? He had a really good run at one point. And they
got a shit celebration though, Ben. So.
Let him go. No, I've adopted it on Pro Clubs recently. So yeah, it's a great celebration. I think you'll find. They've brought in Paul Clement, who's got a very fascinating sort of resume. Obviously, he was the assistant to Carlo Ancelotti at Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid. He even went with him to Bayern Munich after he left Derby. And now he's back in. I was going to say England, back in the United Kingdom, and for now, 2017. Look out! And he's now in charge of Swansea. I think really it's planning for next year, right? Surely.
I don't know. I feel like there's a chance here for Swansea, maybe that they can set up. I think it's. I feel you look at Paul Clement's resume that like you don't become assistant manager at the likes of Real Madrid, PSG,
but he's
and Bayern Munich.
not got the experience at the Premier League.
But at the same time, he was at Chelsea for 5 years as a coach and then assistant manager.
Yeah.
And he's only 45. And I think it'd be wrong to just disregard him now because we have such a problem in English football as a whole about complaining about young English managers not getting enough opportunities.
Just wait for Hull, Jack. Wait till we get there.
The issue here with Paul Clement is he is relatively young, at 45, if you compare him to a lot of the managers in the Premier League, not all of them. But he's someone who has proven himself at other areas. And if he was to go to a championship club, I imagine a lot of people would go, well, he's really overqualified. Why has he gone there? Obviously, he went to Derby County. That didn't really work out. He then went straight to Bayern, which I think speaks volumes about how highly he is rated.
Well, no, hang on. I feel like you've missed the point here. He's the assistant to Carlo Ancelotti. Chelsea, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. He's basically Ancelotti's best mate. That's why he's got these jobs. He isn't applied.
I think you have to be good at your job as well, or he wouldn't follow you along. He'd go,
but there aren't many. I think the argument I would make is there aren't actually that many assistant managers that have gone on to be really good managers.
Yeah,
I think that's the fear. I think
that's the fear. And although in favour of Clement, actually, I sort of agree with Jack in the sense that I think actually for the club it's a pretty good appointment. I don't think he'll be able to inspire the kind of response that will keep them in the Premier League this year. I think they will go down. No. I think long term it's a good appointment. He was doing pretty well with Derby, even though he left Derby after a fairly short period of time at the helm. They were fifth and they were playing pretty well. And it was more of, I think, a personal problem with the board that led to him leaving, rather than sort of playing badly on the pitch.
They was there for, I'd say they're fifth or sixth, so they were doing all right.
So I don't think he's just going off the actual managerial experience. There's obviously something there. Whether he can keep Swansea in the league this year, I think, is a very, very, very tall ask.
Jack?
I was just going to say, I feel like we criticise clubs for not giving young English managers a chance, and I'd say he's one of the best qualified of any of the kind of prospective younger English people within football.
I don't feel like we as a podcast criticise, but I think the culture of British football.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fair enough.
Should we talk about that now?
Let's. Yes, we will talk about it.
Can I start this section, please, with a quote, Ben? Can I?
Is it going to be from a Sky Sports pundit?
It's funny you should mention that because it is.
Go on.
It is.
Is it Paul Merson or is it Phil Thompson? I mean,
which one do you want to do?
I'm pretty sure we're going to go with Donald Merson route. Basically, folks, Hull City have appointed Marco Silva as manager, previously been at Sporting and Olympiacos. I think he was manager for a little time. Somewhere else as well, I forget.
He took a second division Portuguese team called Estoril from the second
lovely
division.
Kit, Estoril. They used to have a lovely kit.
They do. Yeah. Took them from the Portuguese second division to the Europa League, and that got him the Sporting Lisbon job.
Rubbish.
Which he then won the Portuguese Cup with, and then he won the title with Olympiacos last year. So I don't know why he left. I don't know if he
should be clarified.
Not personal reasons.
Not that. I will go with Merson a little bit on this. That isn't that hard to do. They're pretty rubbish.
I will do the Merson one, and because of his connection to Liverpool, you can be Phil Thompson. Okay, Ben?
I don't have it in front of me, but I could do the gist. Yeah,
I'll send it you right now.
No, it's all right. I've seen what he said.
Live.
So I'll just say it.
This is Paul Merson on Saturday. I could win the league with Olympiacos. I'm not even joking. They've won it 107 times and it's only been going 106 years. Why does it always have to be a foreign manager? Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against foreign managers. Klopp, Pep Guardiola, all top drawer managers. This geezer ain't any different to Gary Rowlett. to be clear. These ex-footballers, they're doing 4-5-year courses, costing a fortune to do their badges, and none of them get a chance. None of them get a chance to manage at the top level. The ones who are, like Sean Dyche, who's doing a great job at Burnley, are fighting relegation every year. Will he get a good job? This is a good job. Hull are a good team, great stadium, some very good players. But what does he know about the Premier League? That was Paul Merson. There you go.
Can I just read out the managers Hull? Just on that, I'll just read out the managers that Hull have had preceding Marco Silva. Nigel Pearson, Nick Barmby, Steve Bruce and Mike Phelan. All, of course, British and most of which under 50.
I feel that Merson statement pretty much epitomises, to me at least, the kind of English media view.
Well, we'll continue it, Keno. Phil Thompson has something to say as well, Jack. What does he know about Hull? I won't do Scouse. What does he know about Hull? It's quite astonishing that they've plumped for someone like this. It's not, Phil. It's not at all. It's just baffling. Again, it's not. When there's a lot of people out there who know about the Premier League, I mean, who's he on about at this point? Know what's required to dig it. I don't even know what that means. He's not got a clue. He's a manna from heaven to be given this job. It's another slap in the face to all the British cultures and managers, and what they have done to make this appointment for 6 months is just embarrassing to the football club. It's
Jack,
not.
Before you jump in, Jack, I have one more thing to
I'll just say,
round off
after this round, Paul Merson signed Thierry Henry as an English manager not to get given a chance. So continue.
I know. In the last sort of, at least the years of the Premier League, right? The last English manager to win a European competition was Bobby Robson, no longer with us.
I know, I wasn't laughing at Bobby Robson, it's just that it's such a long time ago.
That was the Cup Winners' Cup, which no longer exists. That was 1997. No Englishman has ever won the Premier League. 104 managers have tried. Harry Redknapp was the last English manager to have won the FA Cup, obviously with Portsmouth. And Steve McLaren is the last English coach to have won the League Cup, and that was even longer ago. That was 13 years ago. So let's just say that fortunes have not been kind to English managers. Now, football, like as much as we criticise occasionally very weird appointments and sackings,
and Hull's owners generally, but this occasion they're not at fault really.
I'm not sort of moving any blame away from the horrendous conduct of Hull's owners in the last 2.
They're still bad. Do you know what they're doing now? They are almost trying to get the club relegated so that when they leave at the end of the season, they can go, we're going to leave you where we started with you.
Yeah. Like, that aside, right, football and management in the Premier League is actually a bit of a meritocracy, right? If you do well, you will stay in employment. If you have a reputation for doing well, see Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, they repeatedly get jobs in the Premier League. If you are shit, you don't last very long in the job. It's just the way it works.
I will say,
those stats suggest English managers are not very good at the top level.
I do agree with you, but we have to consider the fact that Sir Alex Ferguson did win like so many of those Premier League seasons. Yeah, I know, but that's kind of my point, is the fact he's British and it's the same person repeatedly winning it.
Yeah, exactly. But he skews the stats. He makes them look better than they are. They're probably worse if you took Fergie out the occasion.
How does that work? You say how many years since an Englishman won it? What I'm saying is the same Scottish guys won it repeatedly.
Look,
my
big
issue actually with this...
Tim Sherwood, 50% win ratio at Spurs. And where is he now? Actually. What happened to him? Where is he now, Jack?
I do want to say, my big gripe isn't actually with Hull's appointment. It's actually with the sacking. It's the fact that they've sacked Phelan. Let's be real here. Hull, going into the season, probably the worst ever Premier League squad to play in the Premier League as a squad as a whole. I don't know if you have any disagreements with that.
They only had about 14 players
it was awful. What is a man meant to do with that squad? He has kept them, to be honest, to keep them as competitive as he's been this year. Ben, you said they were going to finish on like 6 points this year. They've already doubled
8 points.
That.
8 points.
Well,
they haven't doubled that. Yeah. So
but my point is that Hull, no one backed them going into this season. People thought they were just going to be the whipping boys. And yes, you look at their recent form, it's not been great. This guy has taken this job on basically because he was at the club. He's a bit like the dad of one of the boys he plays in a little kids' football team, and the actual manager leaves and takes his son with him, and all the parents are stood looking around thinking who's going to take over now, and he's just the one that everyone looks at. He's taken over this Hull squad, awful squad in terms of the quality. I don't think their performances have been that bad considering where we thought they'd be. Obviously, there's a few results
actually,
in there.
yeah, I agree with that. I don't think
I feel
as
like
bad as we
for
thought.
Mike Phelan, what more was he meant to do? really. Like the club owners have left him in such a bad position. I think to not even give him a chance to try and sign any players. And I know there's going to be the argument of, well, they're 13th, they're bottom of the league.
Hold on a minute, though. Hold on a minute. If you're a Hull fan and you've won 1 in 17 or 1 in 18...
If you talk to Hull fans, and I know a fair few...
They won the opening 2 games, by the way. That was the 6 points. They won the opening 2 games. They've won 1 game since that.
The thing is, the blame isn't with the manager. And if you talk to Hull fans, they'll agree with this. I went to the University of Hull. I have a lot of friends who are Hull fans. I don't disagree. They do not blame Phelan in any way for what's happened at their club over the season, particular results. It's all about the owners.
I should clarify. I do agree with you. In this particular situation of Hull, I think it's sort of... I agree with Ben in the fact that the results just don't add up. And on that level... it's difficult to make a case for him to keep his job, but I also agree with you, Jack, in the sense that in this particular situation, there's not much Phelan could have done.
Yeah, I agree that. Yeah, I agree that the whole management have put Mike Phelan in this position and have now sacked him. I mean, in a way, well done, Mike Phelan, for getting that job to begin with, and he'll get a nice little payoff for getting sacked. 1 in 18 is not good enough. So surely, as an owner, you're sitting there thinking, right, we've potentially made a mistake here. Would another manager win us more than 1 game in 18? They've got 18 left, or whatever it is, to the end of the season. That's what they're banking on.
But I don't think the whole board, and particularly the chairman, actually care if they go up or down. There's a lot of talk actually about the fact that they are tanking intentionally this year, and they're not going to invest money in January, and they've basically tempted Silver over with the prospect of being paid well for 6 months. Because they want to basically get the club relegated. They're not bothered about the money, the family who own Hull. They've got lots of money. They want to get Hull relegated so that when they leave the club and choose to set for a cut price at the end of the year, they can go, we've left you where we took over the club in the Championship and haven't just been relegated.
But if they don't care, why does that matter? I don't understand. Why does that matter to them then?
Why does what matter?
Well, if they don't care, why would they want to get the club relegated?
Because they want to leave the club where they started. They want to make the fans...
Why? But why do they want to do that? If they don't care about the whole...
They see the fans as being very ungrateful. It's been such a bitter thing between the fans of Hull and the chairman, all the way back to the renaming. Ever since they failed to rename the club to Hull Tigers, it's been very, very catty. And the reason that the board want to leave the club in the situation they left them is simply because they feel like the fans have been ungrateful, and it's going to be a bit of a kick in the teeth if they just leave the club and go, this is where you'd be without us, this is where you are now.
That situation, which is an awful situation aside, like the point that I think this sort of particular situation with the appointment of Mario Silva has raised is something that we constantly see from people in football every time. I mean, it happened with Bob Bradley at Swansea, where many pundits and many journalists wanted Ryan Giggs passionately to get the job. And
their mate Ryan Giggs.
We see it, their mate Ryan Giggs, who for some reason hasn't been considered for any of these vacancies that have come up recently. Maybe that is because of something, but I don't know. Maybe it's a bias towards British managers. Who knows? But every time this happens, there is a clamour that English managers are not being given a chance. And I just think that if you want English managers to be given a chance, they have to prove that they can do it consistently at a good level in the Premier League. And I'm talking, when I say good level, all of the top 7 are managed by foreign managers. If you could get an English manager who could compete with your Maurizio Pochettinos in the Premier League, then Spurs, I would expect, would go for him because he has proven to be a good manager.
Look who he replaced.
Exactly.
Precisely. There's not much more that needs to be said about it. Look who he replaced.
Point proven.
Hull are in a very precarious position. I think they'll probably go down. Should we move on to some predictions? What we think will happen for the rest of the season?
Probably going down.
Of course, not just on Hull. I mean, just generally. We'll talk about transfer business and whatnot. There's not really much happened so far, so we'll talk about transfer business next time round. I mean, we just had the FA Cup. There wasn't that much really to mention. There weren't.
You got a good game, Ben. That was a fun game.
That was great. Yeah, 0-0. I should do a quick note though. Lincoln, Jack, top of the conference, and got a replay against Ipswich. Should have probably won it as well.
I respect Lincoln.
Of course we do. Apart from the train crossing that goes through Lincoln City Centre, which is a disgrace.
No, you don't. Take the bridge.
Another one.
If you're ever in Lincoln on the high street and you see that the lights, if you don't know, there's a train line that intersects the high street in Lincoln. They built a bridge recently over the track. Turns out the reason they've done that is because they have lots of trains running. Me and Ben were walking down Lincoln High Street, one train. Right, we'll wait. There's no point in going over the bridge. It's like 50 steps up and 50 steps down. Train will go and it'll be done. 4 trains later, still stood at the bottom thinking, no, not going up the bridge. Just go up the bridge. If you're ever in Lincoln, just do it.
Me and Jack met up over Christmas. I should clarify this train situation. We watched a train go left across, and then the same train came back, and the still hadn't gone up. It was ridiculous. So Lincoln, while you're playing very good football right now, and this train chat is not really about your football team, sort your trains out. The bridge is a waste of time. Train chat. Can we do that next week? Can we have that every week?
We mentioned the FA Cup. Cambridge United are currently beating Leeds 1-0.
Are they?
We're maybe missing the giant killing as we
potentially.
I'd like to say congratulations to Cambridge, or commiserations on the fact you lost, or well done on getting a replay. Whichever happens, you've done well.
I'll edit that, Jack. I'll edit it.
What on earth is just up in there? With train track
covering all bases.
Anyway, let's do a little bit of prediction then. So. We did this at the start of the season. I'm going to ignore these, by the way, when we do our who predicted what at the end of the year. But Kino, Premier League winners. Kino, Premier League winners.
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Bit of internet lag there.
You right there?
I missed.
He's waiting for a train.
Yeah, he's waiting for a train. Kino, Premier League winners.
I said Chelsea in August. I stand by that. There's no reason for me to not to move away from it.
Jack, we both said Manchester City. I'll come to you first. Who do you think will win the Premier League, Jack?
Liverpool. I can't do it. I'm going to say... I want to say Spurs again to make it tradition that every year I say Spurs are going to win the league in January, but I actually think they've got a reasonable chance. And part of me wants to say Liverpool, but I just don't think Liverpool are going to be consistent enough. We've not really talked about them today. I think it's a weird situation at Liverpool because I don't think anyone expected Liverpool.
It's all going a bit well, isn't it? It's all going a bit well.
It can't get better, surely. So I'm going to say I think Spurs will challenge Chelsea, but I think Chelsea might just have the legs on them.
All right. Relegation, boys?
Are you not doing a prediction?
Liverpool.
Good man. One of us had to do it.
Okay.
Because why not? I mean, it'll probably be Chelsea, fine, but that's not fun, is it? So we'll say, and I've just said to you boys, I'm not including these predictions at the end of the season. So Liverpool, there we go. Teams go down. Hull, Swansea, Sunderland. I'm going to say those 3. Actually, no, I'm not. I've told a lie. Hull, Swansea, Watford.
Ooh.
You think?
I think Hull, Swansea. After we all agree on Hull, Swansea, I feel like they're...
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Hull, Swansea, and actually Middlesbrough.
Wow, you've gone left field as that. I mean, I don't think Middlesbrough will, but yeah.
Fewest goals in the Premier League.
I'm tempted to stick to. I mean, I was considering Borough. I think the Watford one's a bit of a curveball, actually.
Playing awful. No wins in the last 5.
Yeah.
And they've. I don't know. It's just not going very. I mean, some Watford fans are going to be furious, but you've not played well recently.
I'll do what you did, Ben, and I'll say Hull, Swansea, and Leicester City. The first
I feel like it's my fault because I've answered that don't mean anything, so we just hell for leather. Champions League. I'm going Leicester.
Please. Can I change my I want to go with Hull, Swansea, and Manchester United.
No, I will say Watford, by the way. They've won one of their last 8, and that's why I think they could be in a spot of bother. They beat Everton, but they've lost to Stoke, they lost to West Brom, lost to City, Sunderland, Spurs, and they lost to Stoke as well again. It's not been a very good run. They drew with Palace, so even Palace got a point against them. That's the situation we've been in right now.
I'd almost quite like Leicester to go down. Sorry, Leicester fans. I mean,
I wouldn't Leicester fans. I think you're fine.
No, but it would just put into perspective what an amazing year it was last year.
Yeah,
it will never
my bold prediction of the year is that Hull won't now win a game till the end of the season.
Wow, I'm annoyed because I said 8 points as well. Just quickly though, Watford, I'm not going to get off this because I want to try and justify it for people that are annoyed. They've got Middlesbrough coming up and then Bournemouth away. Those are the fixtures. If you don't do anything in those fixtures, you got to spend or you're in trouble because you've got Arsenal, United coming up.
You know what they're going to do?
Shortly after that.
They're going to sell Igalo to a Chinese Super League team for 45 million. That's my prediction for the January window. There was a talk about happening in the summer. They rejected a £37.5 million bid. He signed a new contract and now he hasn't scored this year. That's a mistake.
That was in the January though, that bid came in.
I think there was another one in the summer as well because he signed a new deal in the summer.
May well have been. Any more predictions we want to throw in there?
Any more?
I think they're the ones that matter, really.
Yeah, is that done? Top goal scorer, maybe? Yeah, top goal scorer.
Yeah, there we go. 2 people thought on the same wavelength. That's good enough justification.
All those bloody trains. Sorry, I'm just back on that again. Top goal scorer then currently stands. I mean, where's the list? Anyone got the list in front of me? I've lost it.
It's Diego Costa on 14.
Yeah, then Sanchez.
Oh, okay, you got the list now.
Sorry, yeah, I got that quickly. Costa, Sanchez, Ibra, Lukaku, Defoe, Aguero, and Kane. Dele Alli's got 10 as well, actually. Keno, top goal scorer.
I can't see anyone else than Costa, really, unless Zlatan. I think if United are in with the shout of the title by the end of the year, that'll mean that Zlatan's scoring goals. But I think, based right now, Diego Costa.
I can't remember who I said in the summer. I'm sure we did a prediction for this. I can't remember. I probably said Aguero. I can't remember. Jack?
I want to say Charlie Adam, but he's injured for the next 2 months.
Do you mean Austin? Do you mean Austin?
No, after Adam.
Charlie Adam.
I'll tell you why I've got Adam. It's because he's one of. If you search for the players who have scored the least amount of goals, he comes up as the first player because he's only.
So you've now mixed Charlie Austin.
No,
with
I'm
Sergio
sticking by
Aguero.
Charlie Adam now. I've said it. I don't want to admit to my mistake. Charlie Adam will be top goal scorer this season.
What you meant to do is say Charlie Austin. You just said Charlie Adam. This is great.
It's because Charlie Adams. Like, if you look at the goal scorers who've scored 1 goal, he's top of the list on alphabetical order with AD. So I've just seen his name. So
I'm worried, Jack.
He said Charlie Aguero.
You're getting very. What I hate, Jack, is that this podcast slowly, because of you, is turning quite biased. And with that, I think Adam Lallana will be top goal scorer at the end of the season.
See, I was going to go with Mane, but then he's got African Cup of Nations. So
I should say Costa, and it'll be 24 goals.
Actually, my bold prediction for top goal scorer is Christian Benteke.
That's
Sam Allardyce,
extraordinarily
get
bold.
the most out of him.
Only he's currently got 8. Okay, we'll see.
I mean, he's only 6 off Costa.
Yeah, but plays for Crystal Palace. That then brings us to the end of what has been a bit of an up and down show, I dare say, listeners. The feature seems like 3 days ago. If you have enjoyed listening, do leave a like on YouTube. Of course, you can follow us and For The Fans on Twitter, at For The Fans Show, at Jack Zia, at Keno with an 8 in the middle, at Dr. Benji. Check out Classic Football Shirts. Hopefully you'll hear a message at the start and end of this as well. Anything else we want to mention, boys, before we go?
Just a public reminder not to wait for the trains in Lincoln on the High Street.
Yeah. I should say, sorry for the lack of show over Christmas. It was just scheduling. That's all it was.
It was. Keno was on holiday, then I was on holiday. Leeds have just scored, so Cambridge, could be a replay.
Stop this.
All right, I'll edit the show, Jack. So you're
going to have to, Keno. That's going to be.
You said the right thing there.
So 2017, it's been a great year. We'll see you again. Sorry, Keno, no offense. But no, Happy New Year to everyone that listens. Thank you for the support last year. Hopefully we can continue it this year. We'll try and be more regular, and we'll do our best with that. At For The Fans Show, ForTheFansShow.com. Jack, go on.
We've missed an opportunity to talk about our favourite Christmas presents. We'll do it next time because I got a great Christmas present that's podcast related.
I don't think it'll be a really good reference in June, but okay.
He'll be talking about socks.
Actually, it's just a Boutier penalty shootout set.
You are
right.
You are a nerd. End the show. Jesus Christ.
It's a sculpture of a gold Benji. It's perfection.
Keno, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.